Howdy folks, how are we doing? Here's a part 2 video. You see that moving right there? That was an American alligator just now that entered into the water. You could see that it was basking in the water. Gosh dang, I wish it stayed there a little longer. But American alligators essentially act as a keystone species in Florida, and they are indeed native to the state. Now, you may be wondering, how do they really act as a keystone species? Well, here's an important thing to know. What they essentially do in their lifetime is wherever they decide to nest, they dig these big burrows. And these burrows oftentimes will be used by other fellow homies once the alligator moves on. And you know, certain homies such as the Great Blue Heron, for example, they'll actually also use that burrow as a nest. So, in a sense, they kind of act like a gopher tortoise. I mean, actually, in a sense, the American alligator and the gopher tortoise fall under a similar classification. They are both reptiles. And these reptiles basically describe an organism which has mostly scaly skin, and most reptiles, if not all, they are all ectothermic. So what that means is they have to use the ambient temperature to warm up their bodies. So they're cold-blooded. So American alligators can grow quite large. You know, the one that we just saw that went into the water, that's probably like a juvenile. But once it reaches into adulthood, which takes probably close to a decade, they can be as long as 6 feet, if not longer. Especially the males. But it's the females who actually can do more of the nesting, which makes sense. Now, alligators, they are oftentimes only found in freshwater and brackish water. You can't find them in any salt water. Now, with that being said, you may have heard of the counterpart of a crocodile. Now, an important thing to know is crocodiles mostly inhabit salt water. And actually, there's only one little portion of Florida near the Keys, like in between the Keys and the Everglades, where you'll actually find a native population of crocodiles. So, what I'm trying to say is, if you see something that looks like an alligator, it's most likely an alligator. Because crocodiles, they can't inhabit freshwater. They have to have salt water. Now, some of it also has to do with anatomical difference, and I think it would be better to just do that for a separate post. That way you guys can actually see it, visually speaking. But a lot of it has to do with looking at their snouts, especially. And like I said, I'm just going to discuss that for a separate time. Because to me, it's better to see it visually. Because you know, as I like to say it, pictures are always worth 1,000 words. Yeah. It's just a gorgeous day to just be out on the Myakka right now. Couldn't ask for a better one. And of course, like, we're seeing a bunch of cabbage palm as well, also with my good old Pongo. But yeah, as I was mentioning in my previous video, because I kind of got distracted because I had to make port, I mentioned that the Myakka River is a meandering stream. So basically the river behaves something like a snake. And the river does that because it has to find that path of least resistance. And so eventually, the path of a river will eventually make its way closer to the haba. So water always finds the path of least resistance. It's always a principle to remember. And I did notice too, when I was making port, found this one right here. This is like a bivalve of some type. Difficult to say what exactly it might be, just because the shell is kind of tainted, but yeah, I can definitely see that it is a bivalve. What's also neat too is, like, come on camera, is it gonna focus? No, it's not. There we go. You can kind of see that it's like the shape of a heart. And like this is an actual live organism too. So that's another thing. Some of those bivalves will eventually make their way into the ocean. You know, just depending on the currents going on. So yeah, there we go. Hope you guys enjoyed that little snippet, you know, regarding about the American alligator. My apologies that only appeared very briefly. I can't always control when they choose or not choose to move. But, you know, they're also afraid of humans, too. So my rule of thumb is, if you don't bother it, it won't bother you. Alright, you guys, take care. Enjoy your Wednesday, and journey on a journey is outwards. Take care, folks. See ya.